Corporation in Phoenix, Arizona. He was moved several times.
Wait, they're freezing people in Arizona? Bro, the sun's gonna beam through that facility and melt them, bro. What's up? How do you do? We got another video today. It's right after that other video by Young Brew where we were talking about, what were we talking about? Those guys that survived on that island. So, another one by Brew. We got a 23-year-old girl freezes head without body to live forever. Huh? I didn't even know you could do that nowadays. Cryogenics. But is she even still alive? If they, like, I guess maybe if they have, like, her brain, right? If they froze her brain, and then maybe they could upload her. That's been a thing lately people have been talking about and thinking about implementing with AI. But regardless, let's get into it. I'm excited to see this because it, it's an interesting topic. But go ahead and like, subscribe, and let's do it.
What if I told you that there might be a way to time travel? All you have to do is wait and chill for a couple of centuries. Easy, right?
I believe it.
Okay, it might be a little more complicated than that. In my last video, I talked about people miraculously surviving after being under ice for extended periods of time. In this video, we're going to talk about people purposefully freezing themselves through cryonics. A fancy word, which here means the process of freezing a corpse and storing it until a theoretical time in the future when technology has advanced enough to bring that person back to life. Looks like I'll need another batch of coffee. I get the feeling that part 2 is going to give me just as many shivers. Freezing in cryonics, or cryogenic freezing, is not like putting meat in a freezer at home. It's low temperature freezing. Most cryonic institutes freeze at negative 204.8 degrees Fahrenheit. To put things in perspective, your home freezer sits at 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh,
You've
nah,
probably
bro.
heard of cryonics
That's
before.
deep cryogenics. That stuff is like frozen from the inside out.
You've probably heard of cryonics.
Yeah, you're freezing cells. You're freezing atoms.
Before in popular culture, but
freezing DNA,
in a
bro.
negative light. In the popular TV show Futurama, the main character Fry accidentally falls into a cryonics chamber during a prank pizza delivery call.
Maybe is that why? Does he love Futurama? That he's got to love Futurama, cause like in that last video, he had the dude animated like Fry. Am I crazy? Nah, he's loved Futurama.
He woke up in 2999 and realized his family was gone. Software engineer and former IEET intern Ben Scarlato suggests the Futurama episode may be indicative of how cryonicists are sometimes perceived as antisocial and with nothing to live for in the present. In the 1962 sci-fi film The Brain That Wouldn't, a young surgeon named Dr. Bill Courtner and his fiancée Jan Compton end up in an accident. He survives, but Jan's body is destroyed. Bill decides to keep Jan's severed head alive in an electrified petri dish, but he realizes she needs a new body, so he settles on glamour model Doris Powell.
Whoa, this happened?
And doesn't want to continue living without her body. She even begs Bill to let her pass away.
She's alive talking to him? Wait. This is real? Wait. She really just got her whole body chopped. Just a head in a dish, and she's talking to him for real? That's how we're moving? Bro, I thought this was like... I thought it was like some niche, like... How did her body not shut down? What? Alright, this is crazy. What time was
who
this?
Speaks of the film in her article, The Creepy,
it's a
Insane,
film.
and Undeniable Romantic World of Cryonics, raises the question, how can we be so sure that living forever
was a film.
will be pleasant? Even if daily life right now is an utter joy for you, how can we be so sure that it would be so fun if you live for several hundred or 1,000 years?
You'd get bored. You'd get adjusted to it. You'd have to constantly keep up with the change. Like, you'd have to be like invested in the changing world.
Their Marvel comic, Captain America,
to like
frozen in the Arctic
remain
in the
sated
1940s,
for any long period of time, I would have to imagine.
And wakes up in the modern day. When he wakes up, he realizes that he doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
In one of the comics, Cap says, "I'm like a dinosaur in the
Yeah.
Cro-Magnon age, an anachronism who's outlived his time."
Cro-Magnon is
Anachronism is another fancy word, which here means a
it's
thing
out of
that
time.
belongs to another time.
Yeah.
In the Marvel movies, Cap reunites with his girlfriend Peggy Carter, but sees she's much older now, and she eventually passes on before him.
Dang.
Both the
Peggy,
comic and movie
no.
suggest that getting a second chance in the future doesn't turn out so nice. Despite negative representations in popular culture,
It wasn't far enough in the
interested
future.
in
That's
or
what.
opt for cryonics for certain reasons. Some people feel unfulfilled in life because
Plus,
they have a
he was low key too old when he transitioned. I think. Wasn't he like a grown man like that? Fully his like amygdala was like, or not his amygdala, his like his brain was like fully developed. His frontal cortex, his frontal lobe, it was like fully developed and everything. He already had his like culture, his views, everything was like he was an established man of his own time at that period when he did freeze, I think. So yeah, doing it like that maybe, but like if it's like I feel like if you do it younger, like if you're 18 or something like that, before you really had a shot at the world, you don't really know what's what. I feel like you could hack it in a different timeline at 18. I feel like you could definitely hack it because that's basically like you're just joining the world anyways, right? Like you're pretty much living in a different world. At least that's how it used to be. Nowadays it's a little bit more blurred because like the age gaps they've been getting like blurred as far as like when you're supposed to be involved in certain things, when you're supposed to be involved in like certain aspects of society. That line is getting blurred a lot. So, but I feel like the younger you do it, you can transition into a different time period fairly easily. I feel not easily, but definitely it'd be possible. You know, it may take a little bit of adjusting, but not that much. Not as much as he had.
terminal illness that is currently incurable. A 14-year-old girl that goes by JS was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. She wanted to be cryopreserved and said, I have been asked to explain why I want this unusual thing done. I am only 14 years old, and I don't want to pass, but I know I'm going to. I think being cryopreserved gives me a chance to be cured and woken up. Even in
That's low key. That's low key it. Like, yo, if you're cryopreserved long enough and people figure out how to cure that cancer, you could wake up and they'll be like, oh, she just had that. We'll just pop her in this little oven right here and then cure the cancer and that's it. Like, that would be cold. No pun intended.
of years' time. JS passed in 2016 and was cryopreserved at the Cryonics Institute in Michigan, U.S. Others want to spend more time with their family.
Is she
Victoria
alive?
Stevens, a member of Cryonics UK, said, I enjoy living. I love my family and I wouldn't want to say goodbye to them forever. I just find living a joy, so why would I not want to continue? As a member of Cryonics UK, Victoria signed up to have herself cryopreserved in the future.
That's cool.
And someone on Reddit said, I was primarily interested in cryonics for my parents, who I want to have with me for the next few centuries as well.
Next
Even
few
famous
centuries.
people like Walt Disney were allegedly interested
Yeah,
in
he
being
was
frozen.
alleged.
In a 1972 interview,
We don't
Bob
need him.
Nelson,
I feel-
president of the
This is a hot take, but I feel like we don't need to preserve so many people from the past that had like certain ideologies. Maybe we don't need to. Maybe we could start that now that people have more balanced views of the world. But hey, that's just my take.
Cryonics Society of California told Los Angeles Times Walt Disney wanted to be frozen. But Disney never got to the legal paperwork in time. Nelson clarified, lots of people think that the body's in cold storage in his basement. The truth is, Walt missed out. He never specified it in writing, and when he passed, the family didn't go for it. They had him cremated. I personally
They had him
have seen his
cremated.
ashes. They're in Forest Lawn. Strangely
I don't
enough,
know.
even
Is that
after the
true?
interview, there was
It
an
could just be
urban
cap.
legend that Disney's head was cryopreserved under Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean ride. The story must have changed, similar to a game of broken telephone. It started off with,
Honestly,
"The
I can't
body's
tell
in a
you
cold
what's true or
storage
not.
in his basement," to Walt Disney is frozen under the Pirates of the Caribbean. In reality,
Yeah, they're
Disney
just
was
talking,
cremated.
bro. They say in reality, but you could easily falsify that. Easily. You could easily falsify that. That's like no problem, especially for someone of his stature and like the connections that he had. He could easily falsify that.
And interred at Forest Lawn
His
Memorial
family could have
Park
covered
in
that up like crazy, and he could
1966.
honestly still be under there.
And you'll
But
find out later why it would
I'm
be
not here to
inconvenient
throw up
to cryopreserve
conspiracies.
someone
I'm
under
just
a Disneyland
acknowledging the
ride.
fact that the lack of information and the information they showed, the gap is wide enough for there to be plausible deniability.
Cryopreservation has been around for a long time, but cryonics on human bodies was first scientifically proposed in the 1960s by Michigan professor Robert Ettinger in his book, The Prospect of Immortality, where he argued the end of life could be reversible. He said, frozen after deanimation, whether you pass of old age, disease, or accident, you may be revived and rejuvenated by future technology. If you make the arrangements right now. In 1976, Professor Ettinger founded Cryonics Institute, which provides full-body cryopreservation of humans, pets, DNA, and tissue storage. Ettinger passed in 2011 and was placed in a cryostat, a chamber that maintains very low temperatures, at Cryonics Institute in hopes of being revived in the...
So like, what if the company gets bought out and then they just nuke the program? All those people that signed up thinking that they were gonna be like, oh, I'll see you in the future, bro. That could realistically happen with today's laws. I don't wish that to happen on anybody who did get cryogenically frozen, but still, like, that could actually happen. And that's scary. That's one of the scariest things. Like, how do you trust that it's gonna be preserved and that the laws are gonna be like upheld around the cryogenics so that they don't just like unfreeze you into slavery or something like that, like, and you get unfrozen to a war period? I guess it's worth the risk just to see how society is that far in the future, but still, it's crazy to think about.
His mother and his first and second wives also reside in the same chamber.
First and second wives is crazy.
He froze his first and second wife? That'll be one hell of a reunion.
Yeah, I know, right? First and second is crazy.
I hope they're not too cold to one another.
That's crazy. Shut up.
Even though Ettinger was the pioneer of cryonics, he wasn't the first to open a cryonics organization. The first person to open a cryonics organization was Evan Cooper, and he founded the Life Extension Society in 1964.
Life Extension
Society. And a year later, LES offered to freeze one person free of charge.
One person?
The Life Extension Society now has primitive facilities for emergency short-term freezing and storing our friend the large homeotherm. A fancy word which here means a warm-blooded animal. LES offers to freeze, free of charge, the first person desirous and in need of cryogenic suspension. Despite the generous offer, no one was frozen at the Life Extension Society.
I bet. They said, our tech is iffy. Who wants to pull up? That's basically what they said. We'll give you free admission, but our tech is iffy. I can imagine that nobody took it. Yeah. Nah. Maybe once it's been developed and tested and of good quality, we'll think about it.
1967, the first human, James Hiram Bedford, a 73-year-old retired psychology professor at the University of California, entered cryogenic suspension. James Bedford was diagnosed with kidney cancer.
I didn't know there were people actually doing that nowadays.
This condition was untreatable at the time.
I thought it was just theoretical.
Bedford asked to be cryopreserved in hopes there would be
I didn't know it was like a real thing people were doing.
Bedford passed away in January 1967 and was frozen
Where are they being
in a
kept, though?
capsule by CryoCare equipment.
Yeah, but like, here's the thing: how do they preserve people? And preserve the facilities? Like, what happens if there's like a power outage, right? Well, I imagine they have a bunch of backup generators and all that, right? So I assume that they probably probably not back then, but they probably updated the tech now. But how do they merge the tech from back then that's supporting them with the tech now and the tech that's going to be advancing? Like, how do they take their chamber, whatever chamber they were in, and support it with the new technologies? How do they do that? How do they do that?
Corporation in Phoenix, Arizona. He was moved several times.
Wait, they're freezing people in Arizona? Bro, the sun's gonna beam through that facility and melt them, bro. Bro, you're freezing people in one of the hottest places in the entire country. That's crazy.
Due to capsule malfunctions before finally securing his place at Alcor Life Extension Foundation in 1982.
That's so crazy. They're probably just being held at room temperature, bro. They're probably spoiling by now at this point.
Forward to the present day. The latest update from Cryonics Institute is from March 2019. There are currently 174 human patients and 168 pets cryopreserved, and over 1,500 people signed up for cryopreservation when they pass. Yep, you heard that right. Pets too. which sounds like a good
Whoa,
deal for
that's
me.
cool.
I already know my sweet water bear can handle that. And guess
that a
what? Small
tardigrade,
pets
bro?
are stored in the same chamber as
Does he have a
sweet water
pet
bear. Yeah,
tardigrade?
right. Pets
Is that what that
too,
is?
which sounds like a good deal for me. I already know my sweet water bear can handle that.
Is that a pet
And
tardigrade?
guess what?
I
Small
wouldn't put
pets
it
are
past
stored
him.
in the same chamber as humans.
Same
he
chamber,
and I
bro?
can chill together for centuries. And Alcor,
Aw.
the institute that currently holds the first frozen man, has a report from April 2019.
April?
They have
Hey, that's when I was born.
168
Not
patients
2019,
and over
obviously.
1,200 people signed up for cryopreservation when they pass.
That's as much as the pets.
So, how exactly are patients preserved?
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Let's start from the beginning. When the patient has clinically passed, a team stabilizes circulation with a heart-lung resuscitator and keeps the
Okay.
brain supplied with blood and oxygen. Next
Okay.
is transporting the body to a cryonics institute as fast as possible. To do
Okay.
so, the body must be packed in ice and must be injected
Okay.
with a blood-thinning medication. Next
Okay.
is the freezing stage. Most people
Okay.
assume the patient is simply put into a big cooler. That's not the case with cryopreserving a human. When freezing something normally like in your kitchen freezer, ice is formed. When water turns to ice, it expands. So, if something made of living cell tissue is frozen, the water inside those cells expands and destroys the cells. Scientist and engineer Mark Miodownik freezes and thaws a carrot to show how ice damages cells.
So
Here's a
how?
carrot. A carrot is also mostly made of water. When you freeze something like this, as we all know, when you freeze vegetables and then you defreeze them, they're not the same as they went in. And particularly, lots of this water, where's that come from? Because when you freeze something that's mostly water, it turns to ice. And ice does something weird to the cells.
To avoid severe tissue damage, human bodies must be cooled through a special process called vitrification. To vitrify
Okay.
a human body, blood is removed and replaced with an antifreeze solution that allows
Oh,
the body to be cooled
whoa.
to super low temperatures without any water in the body freezing and damaging cells.
Oh.
Next, the body is put on a bed of dry
So the
ice.
blood is like, whoa, they don't have any blood. Yo, so I guess they're just gonna transmute blood? Like they're just gonna give them blood? Do they have a medical record? If they gotta probably preserve, or maybe their body will function with a different blood type or something. Maybe they'll have like an omni blood. Yo, that's crazy. So they like fill it. That's what I imagine they'd have to do. It's like something similar to I imagine what they did with what is it when the pharaohs died and they turned them into mummies, basically, where they basically like had sort of like chemical solution and stuff that they underwent with like the wrapping and like to actually preserve the tissue. I imagined it would have to be something similar to that. So that's cool that they just replaced the blood with like
until it
antifreeze.
cools to negative 202
That's
degrees
interesting.
Fahrenheit. And
What about the
finally,
blood in the brain,
The body
though?
must be stored in a cryostat chamber. Fun fact, a chamber at Cryonics Institute can hold up to 6 bodies in a tank and a couple large pets. The tank is filled with liquid nitrogen at negative 321 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember Disney and the rumor that his head is frozen under the Pirates of the Caribbean ride? Well, considering that you have to replenish liquid nitrogen weekly, it's not very convenient or even accessible if he's underwater.
Nah,
at
come
the
on. Come on, man. He's not under the water at the Disney. If they did, right? Come on. That's not a good example, bro. If they were gonna do it, they built an entire underground facility that is underground and fully accessible and efficiently accessible to keep him alive. Let's be real. They built an entire park. They built several parks. They can build an underground chamber to maintain him. Let's be real.
Disney ride. So, how much does it cost to be cryopreserved? At Cryonics Institute, rates are
Okay.
$28,000 to $35,000 for a whole body suspension. At
For
Alcor
what?
Life Extension, rates are $100,000 for whole
For
body
what?
and $35,000 for neurosuspension.
Like for their
Neurosuspension is
lifetime?
cryopreserving only the head.
Or per
in hopes
year?
A new body can be cloned or regenerated in the future. It definitely costs less, but the wait for that sort of science may be much longer.
Yeah.
So, has Cryonics worked on anyone yet? Unfortunately.
My thing is like, okay, what was that billing based on? Was that like per year? That's like basically the same or more as if you're alive. Which is crazy, bro.
No. At least no whole body has been revived
Oh,
from
okay.
being frozen at liquid nitrogen temperatures.
Not yet, so they don't even
removal
know
of
if
an
it's
organ-
possible. They don't even know if that junk is just theoretical, bro. I feel like they need to just thaw someone out and test it first. But maybe they don't have the tech yet.
Organ that was frozen, later thawed and transplanted, was successful.
Oh,
but it
interesting.
wasn't from a human. It was a rabbit. In
The rabbit, bro.
2004, cryobiologist and biogerontologist
I mean, that's something,
Gregory
but-
Fay and colleagues published a paper reporting that 8 rabbits
excuse me.
survived kidney vitrification. So you
8?
can see
That's
the
solid.
success of the rabbit kidney case makes people hopeful.
That's solid,
One
yeah.
day, technology will be advanced enough to bring whole mammals back to
Solid.
life.
That's some solid
Of course,
groundwork.
some scientists are still skeptical.
Of course, naturally.
Perhaps the biggest worry is the brain's survival, responsible
Yeah.
for our personal identity and memory. It's
Yeah,
such
you
a
don't know what,
complex organ.
like, it's hard to predict what the brain's gonna look like after that. Cause like, you get brain freeze, right? No, I'm just kidding, not brain freeze, but literal brain freeze, right? You get what's that thing? Freeze or burn? I don't know how that interacts with like, how did they replace the blood that goes into the brain as well? I imagine it does. They did, right?
And that, if damaged, can change our lives forever. There is some research on brain vitrification from 2014. Researchers from Alcor Life Extension Foundation successfully vitrified a nematode worm without affecting its olfactory senses and long-term memory. And
Whoa.
surprisingly, the nematode worm is very similar to humans. According to neurobiology professor Dr. Eric Lundquist, they have neurons, skin, gut, muscles, and other tissues similar in form,
Nematodes. Oh,
function,
he's got the
and
SpongeBob nematodes in the back. That's ball knowledge. That's exactly what I thought of.
genetics to those of humans.
Mm.
But other experts are not so impressed
Nematode.
and raise more concerns about cryopreserving humans.
Yeah.
Neuroscience professor at King's
Makes
College
sense. Let's
London,
hear it.
Clive Cohen, said irreversible damage is caused during the process of taking the mammalian brain into sub-zero temperatures. The wishful thinking engendered by cryogenics companies is irresponsible. And
Why
biochemistry
is that?
professor at Carleton University in
I
Ottawa,
wanna know.
Ken Story, adds, even if it were possible to successfully cryopreserve organs, each would need to be cooled at a different rate and with a different mixture and concentration of cryoprotectants. Even if you only wanted to preserve the brain, it has dozens of different areas, which would need to be cryopreserved using different protocols. And cryobiologist Dr. Daeong
Think so?
Gao from University of Washington, Seattle, said, even if you managed to limit the damage from cryoprotectants, the question remains of how they would be safely removed. The body
Yeah.
could easily fracture like glass during warming due to thermal stress. Despite the uncertainty of the future, there are still
Yeah,
hopeful
low
patients.
key.
Kim Swosey was one of them.
Suzy.
Hey guys, Pizza Rules 1000 here, also known as Kim. It's not that I'm
What?
scared of, but I don't want to knowing that I could have done something more.
Kim was diagnosed with a highly aggressive brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, and only had 12 to 14 months to live. Kim was interested in cryonics before she was diagnosed and studied neuroscience at Truman State University, so it came more naturally to her when deciding she wanted to be cryopreserved. But Kim didn't have the funds as a college student and asked Redditors to help. Here's a snippet of her post that's archived
cool.
on Reddit. Reddit, help me find some peace. I'm passing on young. I'm 23. I know this is a big thing to ask for, and I'm sure many people are doubtful that preservation is plausible with cryonics. I'm far from convinced, but I would rather take the chance with preservation than rot in the ground or get cremated. I think
Low-key.
cryopreservation is worth a try, even an expensive try. No one knows what technology will be available in 50 years. Yes,
Low-key.
it takes faith in technology, but it takes faith to assume that technology won't be sufficient to reverse these problems someday. I've looked at essentially every diet, supplement, clinical trial, and miracle treatment out there. This is the last thing I can possibly do to fight for another chance, and if it does happen to
feel that.
work, it will be incredible.
I feel
Many
that.
people donated. Kim raised
$10
$17,000 in 3 days, and $50,000 in 2 weeks.
That's
I can't
low-key
say it enough how
powerful.
thankful I am for everybody who's given to me so far. I'm
Yeah, I would have helped her
totally,
if I saw
totally
that.
shocked by the response that I've had from both my friends, my family, and the cryo community. It's total shock
That's
to me
amazing, man.
that people that
I'm
hardly
surprised she
know
didn't just
me
like
are
take out a
considering
loan though.
donating to something
But
just
that's
so
lit.
that I can have some peace of mind, and I really can't find words to express how thankful I am about that.
Cause honestly, like low key, it's just a little bit of a credit check. Drop like a couple bands for a loan real quick. What they gonna do? They're gonna bill you in 200 years? They're gonna come back and bill you for it? I'm kidding. Let me stop. Even if they did, it would be worth paying it because you'd at least be alive to do it, right? But still, I think it was sweet that they actually helped out.
On January 17th, 2013, Kim Swosey
Mm.
became Alcor's 114th patient. She underwent a neurocriopreservation, meaning her head and brain were frozen with liquid nitrogen.
Mm-mm.
When a scientist states that something is possible, he almost certainly is right. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Oh, she knows that quote. A New
Some
Hope.
scientists
Hey,
are
hold
even
on, Star
more
Wars?
hopeful because the first man to be frozen, James Bedford, was evaluated and deemed intact. As I mentioned earlier, he was
Okay.
frozen in 1967.
He was evaluated.
15
What does
years
that mean?
later, in 1991,
Oh, they
Bedford
looked at
was
him?
evaluated by Mike Darwin, the president of Alcor Life Extension Foundation. Bedford's
Okay.
body was transported in a sleeping bag and transferred to
Mm.
an open-topped bath of liquid nitrogen to prevent rewarming. Darwin was in awe and documented his experience in a letter he
Oh,
hopes
okay. So they
Bedford
just
will read in
transport him. They just like, ooh, you better hope that nobody's like just slacking off at work today. They're just like, oh shoot, I just pulled an all nighter, man. A little bender outside. I blacked out last night. All right, let's move these dead bodies, man. Whoops, drops you and you shatter, bro. That would be crazy. Heck no, man. Because people do not care about their jobs like they do, like they used to, man. Nowadays, man, you cannot be hiring people at a cryonics institute that aren't standing on business, bro. They gotta stand on everything, bro. They gotta be like top scrutiny, like doctor level scrutiny, bro. Because you cannot have any mishandled, like entire lives are basically on the line. It's not the same as like working at a morgue where people are already dead. It's like, nah, these people could potentially still be alive. So you're basically a doctor too. You're like an RN. That's how I see it.
the future. Darwin wrote, "I cannot describe the feeling of elation."
But I was gonna say, yeah. So that's how they keep up with the new technologies. They can just transport them to a different, the most updated capsule that they have, which is cool.
And when I peeled back the sleeping bag that enclosed you and saw that you appeared intact and well cared for. Upon evaluation, Bedford had skin discoloration on his upper body, neck, right forearm, and right hand, redness from the lower jaw to the chest, and 2 puncture marks on the neck.
Puncture marks?
Still,
He got bit
Darwin
by a
described
vampire?
Bedford as a well
What? He got bit by a vampire in there or something? Why does he have 2 puncture marks on his neck, bro? Dracula tried to hit a lick and then figured out it was just liquid nitrogen in there? Yo, that's crazy.
nourished male who appears younger than his 73 years.
Wow.
And considering that
Yeah, see,
Bedford
nah, I said the same
male
thing,
who
bro.
appears younger
Look,
than his 73 years.
I said the same thing.
And considering that Bedford had to be moved several times,
got
as
liquid
newer
nitrogen
models of the
vampires running
cryostat
around.
chambers were developed, he is in pretty great shape. Despite the uncertainty of the future and the grim representations in popular culture, there are still people who have
Grim
reason to believe in
representations? What's that?
cryonics.
Is that
Here's a heartwarming
from
story about
Overwatch?
the Sandbergs. Marta and Helmer Sandberg always enjoyed life, but Helmer
Okay.
was diagnosed with a brain tumor and passed in 1994.
Okay.
He wished to be cryopreserved, and his body
Okay.
now waits in Detroit-based Cryonics Institute. His
Okay.
wife, Marta Sandberg, said, "I still miss Helmer. I still
Okay.
love him. We were
Okay.
together for more than 20 years, and they were years of joy and contentment."
Okay.
She also wishes to be cryopreserved.
Yo,
in the
if I
future.
did do a cryopreservation thing, it wouldn't be because I want to live forever. It would be because, like, but, like, who's to say if, like, would I even, like, it wouldn't even be to live forever, right? Like, what if I pulled back up, right? I was like, all right, I'll chill off this for a minute. And then, like, that's when I get to, like, the end of life, right? Like, when I'm, like, way older, right? And I'm like, okay, we got the option to do the, like, little brain upload thing. If we have that, or, like, the little brain thing. So we do that, right? Take that and save the brain for a couple 100 years or something like that. I would want to pull back up just to see what it was like, just to experience it and just to have fun for a little while, for like, and like, I guess like a new body or something, and run it for a while, just for like another lifespan, I guess. It wouldn't be to live forever. It would be just like to experience that time period, which would be pretty cool.
They both can be revived together. Regardless of how optimistic you are in cryogenics, I think we can at least appreciate the effort going toward this field of research. Like every organism, we're driven by self-preservation, but unlike other living things, we're the only ones aware of our own lifespan. In a way, it's natural to push back against nature. We've been doing it for thousands of years, increasing our own tolerance and ability to survive. Perhaps one day we'll be able to push hard enough that we reach the other side, living in a world that hardly remembers a century-long lifespan. Until then, however, these answers may have to be put on ice.
Shut up. You said put on ice, bro. That was funny, bro. Hey, W video, bro. I appreciate your videos, honestly. I do enjoy them. That was a very cool one. And I'll definitely be watching more. But for this one, that's going to be a wrap. Be sure to like, comment down below, subscribe. Let me know what you guys would want to do about being cryopreserved. Would you guys do that? Would you guys go to sleep for a couple hundred or thousands of years? Do you guys want to get cryopreserved? Let me know. What do y'all think it'll be like? But that's going to be it for me. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.